name is Jan Desper Peters, and I'm the Executive Director at the Black Mental Health Alliance. And I'm excited to see so many of you on a Friday evening. That shows your level of commitment to not only this topic and your willingness to explore and to receive additional knowledge, but to do that on a Friday evening is admirable. So I want to applaud you for coming out on a Friday evening. I see so many familiar faces in the room, and it really warms my heart that so many people have kind of caught the Black Mental Health Alliance fire over these last 10 or so months with regard to our call to action series. So we are excited to have these ladies here today, and hope that you will just continue to support the Black Mental Health Alliance call to action efforts. We have a little housekeeping to do, and that is to acknowledge our sponsors and our donors. Over the months, we have oops. You know how to do that? Okay. All right. Okay. We took so long to get it right. I don't want to mess it up. Over the months, we have had different venues support our efforts, and so those would be our event sponsors. And so I'd like to acknowledge them, of course, Coppin State University, but specifically the College of Health Professions, and even more specifically the Department of Nursing, through the efforts of the dean here, Dr. Tracy Murray, who's not here this evening, but she has very able representation here, who welcomes us with open arms. We also have been Carter Memorial Church of God in Christ, the Elmer Henderson School, the UB Blake Cultural Center, New Shiloh Baptist Church, and the Frederick Douglass Isaac Myers Maritime Museum. Our largest sponsors have been the Annie E. Casey Foundation, the Maryland Humanities Council, and Hope Health Systems. And I just lift Hope Health Systems because if you are interested in CEUs, they are actually the agency that helps provide and sponsor those CEUs for us every forum that we have. And so if you're in that position that you might need CEUs, please see the registration desk so that you can sign in before the event and then sign in at the end, and you will actually get your certificate on site. Other partners include Behavioral Health Systems Baltimore and the JOSA Group, whose president is Mr. Joseph Daniels. Like to thank those who every month sponsor our reception, people who have not come before, a little pleasantly surprised that we have food. Maybe Dr. Grills will speak about some of that in her presentation with regard to how culturally appropriate that is for us to make sure that we feed people, and how important it is for us to have an understanding of what it's like to leave work directly and come to a forum at 6 p.m. and not have food, not have time to get your dinner, but be able to offer you some sustenance. So we're happy to have the sponsors who have contributed to that: Alpha Kappa Alpha Sorority, Rosai Omega Chapter, Coppin State University, again, Johns Hopkins University, the NACI Baltimore, and MBI Health Services. We'd like to ask you, if you're going to tweet or if you're going to post on Facebook, to use the hashtag Black Minds Matter. We also would have some surveys and evaluations that we'd like you to fill out at the end of the program. I think that's all of my housekeeping issues. Everybody's so quiet. How's everybody doing this evening? Great? Oh, excellent. I love it. I love excellent. Okay. So without further ado, I saw Dr. Irving, and now I don't see him. So before the end of the evening, though, I'm going to ask Dr. Irving Smith to come in, because he works very closely with Dr. Murray here, and I would like him to bring greetings on her behalf. Next, I would like to ask you to, did you want to say something with regard to greetings, or just, okay, all right. So I I would like to ask my board president, who's standing here, Dr. Jonathan Shepard, to also bring greetings on behalf of the Black Mental Health Alliance.
Gotcha. All right, good evening, everyone. It is good to see you all here. I'm just glad to be here on time for once. Many times I'm coming from the clinic. I am the medical director over at Hope Health Systems. And so it's just a pleasure to also work in the capacity of the president of the board of directors for Black Mental Health Alliance. I was just standing here thinking, it has literally been 12 months since I called Jan on a Tuesday morning after that Monday of unrest. And I called her before 10 a.m. I almost remember the exact time. I said, Jan, what are we going to do about what has happened here in the city of Baltimore? And you are a product of what we decided to do to help our community. And so I am just so proud that we've been able to work together to bring education and consultation and really restoration in our community through these particular forums that we have been able to produce for you this year. So I am just so excited. Let me say one more thing and then I will be done. This year, 2016, I mentioned at our last board meeting that I'm looking for the uncommon in this year, 2016. So I'm looking for the uncommon in my life. I think today is an uncommon situation on a Friday evening at 6:30 p.m. to have the gathering of people at this time to discuss this particular topic. That is uncommon. So I'm looking for the uncommon in every situation in my life. And so I am just so ecstatic and enthusiastic about what we're going to hear today. So I just wanted to bring you greetings from the board of directors who is working hard to see that our organization moves forward in progress and become one of the leaders in this nation in regards to mental health services for people of color. So again, thank you and look for the uncommon.
As Dr. Shepard said, it was about a year ago, almost to the date, that we had our first call to action forum. As a matter of fact, it was May 8th, 2015, when we had our first call to action forum. And I just saw Dr. Nell Prim walk in, and she and Alma Roberts came to the first call to action forum, and right there on the spot said to me that they would work with me almost on a weekly basis with regard to meeting to determine what the Black Mental Health Alliance's role would be with regard to restoration and healing in our city. And it was Enola Prim that actually introduced us to the Emotional Emancipation Circle model, and to Miss Charlene Phipps and to Miss Enola Aird and Dr. Cheryl Grills. And I thought it would be very appropriate to have Miss Enola Aird, speak to us about her vision as it relates to the Emotional Emancipation Circle model and the founding of that model, and the role that we can play in that model in Baltimore. So just briefly to give you an introduction, Miss Enola Aird is an attorney, but she's also a mother. And I think that's probably one of her more important roles. It will be if I was introducing myself in that regard. She is the founder and president of the Community Healing Network. And the Community Healing Network is the only organization focused exclusively on building the global grassroots movement for emotional emancipation to help Black people overcome, heal from, and overturn the lies of white superiority and Black inferiority, the root causes of the devaluing of Black lives. As the founder and president of the Emotional Emancipation Circles, I thought it, again, would be appropriate for her to come forward, if she would, and share with us her thinking, her vision as it relates to the Emotional Emancipation Circles, and it would also be great as a stage setter, if you will, for Dr. Cheryl Grills' presentation. And before Dr. Grills comes up, after Enola Aird, Dr. Shepherd will come back and give us a formal introduction of Dr. Cheryl Grills.
Thank you very, very much, Jan, and thank you for your leadership in this community. Thank you for your leadership nationally as we all work to correct, repair almost 400 years of damage. You're right. I bring myself as a mother to this work, a mother of two extraordinarily beautiful Black children. And it is in their name that I do this work. I thought I'd share with you one of my inspirations for the work that we do. And for that, I want to take you back to 1967. August of 1967, Dr. King is giving what will turn out to be his last presidential address to the Southern Christian Leadership Conference. The speech is called "Where Do We Go From Here?" and I commend it to you. He says a lot that we need to revisit in order to chart our course forward. But one of the things that he says, and in fact the thing that he says we must first do, is massively assert our dignity and our worth. He talks about the many ways in which Black children are taught to despise themselves by virtue of a false sense of inferiority, and white children are taught to adore themselves by virtue of a false sense of superiority. He issues a call that we don't hear too much attributed to him, but it's a call for psychological freedom. He calls it a firm sense of self-esteem that was taken away in the nightmare of enslavement. He says that any movement for the Negro's freedom that overlooks this necessity is only waiting to be buried. On this, as so many other things, Dr. King has proven, I think you will agree, to be prophetic. We are stuck. We're stuck as a people, and our children are telling us that in their behavior. The society is telling us that in their behavior. We are not valued as a people. And so Dr. King exhorts us in that last speech to do this work first before we do anything else. Well, we've obviously not paid attention to that, but one of the things he said in that speech is that the Negro will only be free when he reaches down into the inner resources of his own soul and signs with the pen and ink of assertive manhood, we would add womanhood, his or her own Emancipation Proclamation. And so that was an inspiration. How might we create a process for us to sign our own Emancipation Proclamations? And so we experimented, we liked the notion of emotional emancipation. It tracked psychological freedom, but it also had that, that nice alliteration, the EE circles. And so we went with that. We started in Connecticut, in New Haven, doing it in our own way. As you know, I'm a lawyer, so I didn't feel terribly comfortable with what we were doing. And we, through the good offices of one of our board members, a Community Healing Network, we were introduced to the phenomenal, awesome, truly dedicated, so committed to and in love with Black people, Dr. Cheryl Tawede Grills. We reached out to her and we said, we would like to your help in creating a psychologically sound, professionally sound, culturally grounded process to help us, like AA, to help us go through what we needed to do in terms of understanding our history and its impact on our emotional lives, and what we needed to do to really become free. As Marcus Garvey said, how could we emancipate ourselves from mental slavery? And we said that we were interested in building a global grassroots movement and engaging a critical mass of Black people by the year 2019. And Dr. Grills did not laugh us out of the room. In fact, she said, yes, we're going to do it. And she started working and running, and she has been doing this ever since. And I really want to say how grateful we are to you for the work that you've done. I like to quote James Baldwin. He said that people are trapped in history, and history is trapped in them. To which we say, always, we are escaping. Come with us.
Excellent. So we're moving and we're building toward the highlight of tonight. And as my pastor says, great people are not moved by great introductions. And so I am not going to read her extensive biography. I just want to highlight and then allow Dr. Grills to come forward. Dr. Cheryl Grills is a clinical psychologist, but with a current emphasis in community psychology. She is a professor of psychology at Loyola Marymount University, the national past president of the Association of Black Psychologists, and founder and director of a nonprofit program evaluation organization called Enola Aird Community Support Services, right on cue. Her research interests, publications, and projects include African-centered models of treatment engagement with African Americans, substance abuse prevention and treatment, community psychology, community mental health, prevention and action research, and program evaluation services to community-based organizations engaged in social action, community change, and prevention on a host of issues. Dr. Grills consults nationally on a number of issues, particularly regarding matters of cultural and social competence, multiculturalism, and Afrocentric interventions. She has also studied under traditional medical practitioners in Ghana, Nigeria, and Senegal, and is a registered member of the Ghana National Association of Traditional Healers. It is my privilege and honor to present to you Dr. Cheryl Grills on this evening.
Good evening, everyone. It is truly a pleasure and an honor to be here with you this evening. I pray that I will do justice to the memory of our ancestors and to the future of our children in what I share with you this evening. And I feel a sense of urgency in what I'm sharing, and that sense of urgency is because the house is on fire and we don't have time to quibble. And we've got to get about the business of saving our people. So with that, I'm going to pray that technology is on our side and Murphy has stayed home. You just don't know. So my topic, and I'm going to go a little faster than I had intended just in the service of time because I want to make sure that we've saved ample time for the panel discussion. But my topic is liberation from mental slavery through emotional emancipation. And I want to start with the fact that there have been a lot of attempts, and these are necessary approaches, but they're not sufficient to promote our racial equality in this country. Our starting point, our ancestors were enslaved, brought here against their will, in chains, denied basic rights and liberties, dehumanized, lynched, raped, beaten, brutalized, and tortured. We cannot let anyone try to sanitize that. And there is a definite effort in that direction. We have had all of these constitutional amendments. They gave hints of freedom from enslavement, but some contained within them the seeds of our continued oppression. And then look at all of these congressional bills. And this is not an exhaustive list. This is a sample. They raised hopes Others legitimized racial terrorism. And if that's not enough, look at all of these federal court decisions. They tell the tale of struggle for a full citizenship against the backdrop of our presumed inferiority. And if that's still not enough, at the level of the president, look at all of these executive orders which raise expectations for equality. And yet, here we stand, at the bottom of every good list and at the top of every bad list when it comes to measures of quality of life for human beings. Dr. King said somebody told a lie one day, and then he raised the question, where do we go from here, chaos or community? I said the house is on fire. Chaos is not an option. It's time for a paradigm change, a cultural re-anchoring. Fanon said imperialism leaves behind germs of riot, which we must clinically detect and remove not only from our land, but from our minds as well. It's not rocket science what we need to do. And we have been told repeatedly what the issues are and what we need to do. And you'll see what I mean when I get to the end of my talk. What we have been dealing with is psychic trauma and suffocation. And I'm not talking about that trauma-informed stuff that's out there in the mental health field now. That definition and understanding and approach to trauma does not even begin to scratch the surface of what we've been experiencing. Trauma, in terms of a conceptual reframe, needs to ask the question, not what's wrong with you, but what happened to you. And in asking that question, we also need to then understand, look at how we survived it. Look at our incredible resilience. Exactly. In order to understand the trauma, we have to be willing to do what they did in the Matrix. Take the blue pill and come up out that matrix. And when you come out, put on your race lens so that you have full consciousness. And then understand that you have to look at what lens am I looking at? How deep in does my lens go? Once we do that, we realize that from 1619 up until the things became aware, white folks became aware of what we were dealing with, that the meme of terrorism was with us unabated. It was not ever gone. We never got to post-racial America, okay? What we were facing with was unmitigated terrorism that has multiple names and faces, a never-ending assault, ongoing trauma and stress, not post-traumatic stress. In order to get to post-traumatic stress, you gotta have post. I ain't at post yet. We are not there. And so we have to understand that. And in understanding that, realize that we have got to realize we are in the belly of the beast. That when people tell us, y'all need to get over it, my response, and ours can be easily, I sure will as soon as I get out of it, okay? We're talking about multi-generational trauma, continued racism and dehumanization, unmitigated racial stress. And this is a half empty and half full glass, we have to understand. Half empty in terms of the consequences of that for our health and our well-being. Half full because it says we have an incredible well of resiliency tools that we have to pay more attention to and strategically use. So I want to show you a clip of what I mean about this, and I'm really going to hope that Murphy is not with me. But I want to show you a clip from a new series called Underground. I have been watching it in bits and pieces because if you really allow it to seep into your consciousness, this is a very difficult series to watch. It, like the movie Sankofa, makes Roots look like Disneyland. Okay? I want to show you the clip. I'm going to set it up for you. It is, and this is the first episode. And the mother and the daughter are serving the white owners on the patio, veranda, and the son of the mother is out in the dirt road playing with the little white boy who is his playmate because they're young enough to still be playmates without problem. There's also the white woman who's sitting on the veranda, the mother of the household, who has incredible jealousy for the black woman, right? And then the two boys are playing, and as kids will play, it caused a little bit of a problem. And I want you to focus on a couple of things. Who gets in trouble? What we are called upon and what the sister was called upon to do and to try to address. And then, how does this scene actually stand as a symbol or an analogy for what not only we had to deal with back then, but what we have to deal with on a regular basis right now? Okay, so let's see if this is going to work. Okay, he falls.
You see what you've done? Rosalie, go down there and tell my
That's
son
the
to come
jealous
inside.
lady of the house, and that's the mother,
Quickly now, Rosalie.
and that's the daughter.
What would you done?
No. Oh, yeah, actually, it might be.
You got them all dirty.
Pay attention to the face of this little boy.
What?
Oh, are you kidding me? No, no, no. No, 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 no. Now, it played earlier, and we were just fine. Okay. So, the thing that happens in this scene is that he then, now you have two kids, both. Okay. Hold up. Right. Is it because I lost internet connection? Oh, okay. So let me take you then to contemporary, and then let the scene play itself out if we get it back. What instances have we been witness to a member of our family being racially assaulted? When have we been witness to? Okay, so 4227 is around where we want to start it. When have we been witness to a member of our community and the effect that that has on us? Thank you.
You see what you've done? Rosalie, go down there and tell my son to come inside. Dirty! Them things worth more than your life, boy! Mr. Bill? Get your hands out. Move out!
Mr. Bill, Miss Susanna wants Mr. T.R. and James to go back up on that.
Look at this child's face.
I hate for wasting my time. Hold out!
That's what our children experience.
It's my fault. It's my fault, Mr. Bill. It's my fault. I gave him the sugar. It's got him running wild. If anybody gonna be punished, it's gonna be me.
When have we been called on to step in and take the
That's how
beat?
they do it up in the big house, is it? You just talk to me anywhere you want.
No, sir.
Come down here and tell me how it's gonna be.
No, sir. You're a little boy, sir. Big little boy.
When we wake up and we watch on the news about a Freddie Gray or a Tamir Rice, this is happening to us. And then when we try to exercise our agency as a community, what we are faced with is what you're going to see coming up next. We look on, we end up feeling impotent and helpless. How does that affect us? We carry this in us every day.
Master, guests are coming up the drive.
Every day. And so we have to ask ourselves the question, how is this impacting us? As you watch that scene, what was happening to your body? What was happening to your breathing? Right? What images were coming up for you? This is the kind of work that we need to do as part of our mental liberation. These crippling images of who we are as a people have solutions in terms of setting us free. It's time to put healing on the agenda. There is no legislation to handle that. But we do have strategies, among them emotional emancipation circles. Because we have to come to grips with the question, when and where do we grieve, and where and when do we breathe? And I'm going to come back to this issue. Well, no, I'm going to do it now. Among the last words of Eric Garner, I feel like it was the ancestors reaching through him to once again try to tap us on the shoulder and say, wake up. I can't breathe. Watts couldn't breathe. Detroit couldn't breathe. Harlem couldn't breathe. New Orleans still can't breathe. Ferguson still can't breathe. Flint can't breathe. Cleveland can't breathe. Baltimore still can't breathe. And worst of all, our children back in the civil rights era couldn't exercise their constitutional rights and breathe. They were devalued, assaulted, and arrested. If you understand that and how they were treated all the way back to that clip, then you understand why they still can't breathe. This meme has been unmitigated. And our children can't breathe, and they can't just be and play. They can't play, they can't even breathe in school and just learn. Since our enslavement, our communities can't breathe. And we have neighborhoods like this one in Los Angeles, which is similar to Baltimore, similar to many cities across this country, black neighborhoods, where we have so-called food deserts, right? But they're not deserts, because deserts are natural habitats. This is unnatural, right? Where grocery stores are hard to find, but not liquor stores in the exact same territory. And this is not by our decision. We revolt simply because, for many reasons, we can no longer breathe. Black folk have not been able to breathe for a long time in America, for a very, very long time. Why? Because of marginalization and oppression. And there is a historical and psychological case to be made for the need for emancipation, freedom from this oppression. How did we get here? What's the historical backdrop? A lie was created to exploit Africa and to exploit African people. And this is not how they will teach this history in our schools. We spent 246 years in the condition of formal legalized enslavement. And then we got freed. Emancipation without a plan. But 99 of those years, we had no civil rights. So it was an illusion. So we really have only had about 51 years free. That's barely a generation. Do you see now why I say it's not post? It's not post. Slavery in America traumatized and devastated millions of our people. It created narratives about racial difference that still persist today. They never left. And it fostered bigotry and racial discrimination. And it created an unrelenting meme. And I'm talking meme now, I'm using the analogy from biology. A meme acts as a unit for carrying cultural ideas, symbols, practices, and it can be transmitted from one mind to another. How? Through writing, through speech, through gestures, rituals, media, music. These are cultural analogs. It's like this is a gene, it's moving merrily along, and all of a sudden there's a code switch. But it still looks like the original gene. And these memes are about the inferiority of black folk and the superiority of white folks, and it's a deadly mindset that has been killing us. It frames and defines. We have to take back the authority to define who we are. We were never slaves. You will not define my people's humanity by a condition. We were enslaved. It was an action against us that calls into attention not just the people who were oppressed, but the people who were doing the oppressing. The meme got codified into the slave laws. If the slaves resist the master, he can kill his slaves free of punishment. That sounds a lot like the stuff we've been talking about with the police killings. Murder is permitted during correction to prevent resistance. If you understand the history, everything that we're seeing today is very clear. But we got to get out of the matrix. Take that blue pill. The meme is in science, drapetomania. Science is not objective. Let's get over that lie, particularly as you're talking about the social sciences. So according to this, the Negro is slave by nature and happiest when in that condition. But if you get infected, your illness looks like you're trying to have agency and be a free, full human being. So how did you get the illness? By being treated like a human being. So what's the treatment? Severe whipping and amputation. This is real. This is not me making this up. The meme defines what it means to be human. Codified into law, we are 3/5 of a human being. And we're still fighting to be full human beings in this country today. And it evolves and it grows. So we started with the first, and now you have the Fugitive Slave Act, the Compromise of 1850. The meme extends itself. So now we can't testify on our own behalf or have a trial by jury. That sounds familiar. Those so-called grand juries. The meme pretends emancipation without a plan. Then the meme morphs itself. You're free unless you're imprisoned. And we have more of our folk in prison now than we had during enslavement. The meme terrorizes and authorizes violence. And then it entitles and turns a blind eye. And then it dehumanizes, where it is okay in Florida to use the pictures of black men as target practice at the shooting range. The meme changes our genetics. We've been saying this for a long time. Native Americans have been saying this for a long time. We now have some science to support it. Yehuda's work actually focused not on black folk or American Indians, but focused on Jewish people, trying to determine whether or not there is a genetic effect of the Holocaust on subsequent generations, and she has found that. And also by looking at survivors, pregnant women who were at 9/11. This research says that we can experience a genetic change as a result of the environment that may be oppressing or stressing us. And that environment externally impacts the internal environment, and the gene and its functioning change. Now apply that to 400 years of dehumanization. What has that done to our genes? What has that done to sensitize us or overly sensitize us to stress? Why is it that in this country we can detect racial variations in a split second, and in other places in the world they don't know or see what we see? And what is our knee-jerk reaction? Why is it that some of us can go to places and spaces where our people were not only oppressed, but were terrorized and killed, and we go to these spaces and places and feel uncomfortable, and we don't know why? It's the genetic memory. So emotional emancipation circles offer a way to counter the meme and the trauma, to counter the biochemical changes that happen in the current life. Because you got a double whammy happening. It's the epigenetic piece, plus with exposure to stress or exposure to messaging, your brain physically responds to that. It creates neurons, nerve cells that fire together so that they can efficiently respond to the stimulus associated with that kind of information. We have quick firing for all the messages that we are inhuman. We have quick firing for all the kind of racial stressors that populate our daily lives. But we also know that our brains have plasticity. If we learned it, we can unlearn it. The EECs, the circles, reflect what Shelley Harrell described as the 3-change process model, so that we can get to, we don't want, forget symptom-free. We deserve wellness and well-being. And how do we get there? It has to involve a communal process where there's a focus on increasing and improving our sense of relatedness to each other. There needs to be a contemplative process where we increase our consciousness and our awareness. We understand what's going on around us. We can decode and deconstruct. And then there needs to be an empowerment process where we regain our legs and we have agency to make the changes that need to be made so that we are no longer under the oppressive conditions of the lie and its many machinations. We need an opportunity to actually reaffirm our identity, have self-determination and wellness, again, using that racial lens. There's a proverb that says, if you want to go quickly, go alone. If you want to go far, go together. The circles are about doing this. Forget one-on-one psychotherapy around this issue. And it's not psychotherapy. It is us taking control of our lives. And we do that in community. We engage through community building and civic engagement, rituals, mentorship, cultural activities, spaces and places to be in community so that we can do the work of community. So the new therapy session is us being armed with the truth that moves us to activism, agency, civic engagement, but not easily fooled by litigation, legislation, marching and protesting, praying and crying. There's got to be more to it than that. It's about self-knowledge, and that requires being an intelligent consumer of knowledge, and that's what the circles are about. We need to see the lie 5 miles out, and knowing how to think, not being told what to think, because our educational system is socializing us about what to think, not how to think. It's not socializing us to define our own reality. So forget being told what. We need to focus on how and never allow ourselves to be passive recipients of information, but active architects in constructing our own reality, so that we have self-awareness, the relationship between what one thinks about self, about others, success, beauty, etc., and how you think about these things, mediated by the worldview to which you are committed. Is it, I think, therefore I am, or I am because we are? It's about bridging the gap between what you know and what you don't know know. That's the scariest part of all. It's about bridging the gap, right? If you don't bridge the gap between what you don't know, it's menticide, according to Bobby Wright. You willingly think and act out of someone else's interpretation of reality to their benefit and against your own survival. That is insanity. That is mental illness. So we're talking about addressing what Bulhan, talking about Fanon's work, is the psychology of oppression. And even at the dawn of the 21st century, racism remains a suffocating blanket that does not allow us to breathe. So do you see this ongoing thing about breath, right? And what is breath, let me just step away from this for 1 second. What is breath connected to from an African point of view? Your spirit. Deeper than your spirit, your soul, right? And in the African worldview, we know that your soul is present and intact based on your breath. And with your first breath in, that soul comes, and your last breath out, that soul exits. And that soul gets its vibrancy through ongoing breathing. But we're like this, right? It's a sign, it's a mirror to what's happening to our soul, the oppression. It's also about understanding perception. Is what you see what is really there? That lie, that meme, and the tendencies in perception, basic human perception, I call them frightening bedfellows. What do I mean? How many legs does that elephant have? Them lion eyes, right? Or them eyes that are totally confused by the context that you present something in. When you look at this, what do you see? Do you see faces or do you see a table? And then we can get to a knockdown, drag-out argument about what's actually there, and both of us are right, and both of us are wrong for not recognizing that both of us are right. That's the craziness that we're dealing with. When you look at these two images, which one is bigger? According to your eyes. The one in the back, right? And then according to your eyes, which one of these is bigger? The one on the right. But the reality is they're both the same size. But if you don't have context, your lion eyes will deceive you. Now you say, well, how is this relevant? We're going to come back to this, but read Philip Ativa Goff's article from 2014 on the consequences of dehumanizing black people on black children. Because what will happen is that when people see black children, they do not see innocence, and they feel no compulsion or compunction to protect. They see black boys as bigger than they are and older than they are. Yes, exactly. So perception matters. When you look at this, depending on how you look at it, you see 3, some see 4. Perception matters. But we won't know what's happening with our perception till we start deconstructing the lie and start seeing how the media contributes to it. Katrina, same waters, same day, same behavior. The black person is looting and the white person is finding. Right. And the media primes us and makes sure that our perception is guided down a particular path to how we see ourselves and how other people see us. Here, whites, when there's a crime committed, are presented in this kind of image. And here, we're not even committing a crime, we're the victim. And this is how we are portrayed. Same news station presents the white criminals in this, right, suit and tie, and mug shots for the brothers. Perception matters. We also fall prey to perceptual sets, mental tendencies and assumptions that affect what we see. We perceive the world not exactly as it is, but how it's useful for us. And what determines this? Old information and experiences. So now when you see this, what do you see? A devil. Most adults will see a devil. This is actually based on a study in perception. Most children 3 and under cannot see the devil because they have not, they see there's a lady, there's her hat and her face, there's another lady, that's her arm, there's another lady, picture full of women. But if you have been exposed to a lot of horror movies, you see the face of a devil. The ears and all that, see? Perception matters, and mental sets matter. Finish that sequence. What are the final 3 letters? The only reason you can't quickly resolve that is because you have a mental set. 1, 2, 3, 4, 5, 6, 7. If your brain is free, it actually will start seeing the pattern. Now, what about this one? Your mind is free. The rest will follow. January, February. See, the mental set. See how quickly that mental set got broken. That's what the circles are designed to try to help us to do. There's a wonderful proverb. If you chase a little boy to his house and he turns and faces you, you know that his father is home. The circles take us to our Father's house, and we can say, oh, really? I don't think so. Not no more, right? Emotional emancipation is about overcoming and overturning the lie and the root cause, as the root cause of devaluing our lives. It's about identity and a firm sense of self-esteem, freedom from any and all toxic ideas about our inferiority, freedom to see ourselves beyond the negative stereotypes. It's about demystifying the lie, detoxifying the negative accumulations, restoring self and group identity. But this requires decolonizing our mind, and that is a very difficult thing to do. It's probably the hardest thing we can do because our minds don't know what it's like to not be colonized. The land is no longer colonized, but the mind is. But if we can do it, it is the greatest form of self-love. So in conclusion, don't believe me. I'm going to ask our ancestors and our visionaries to share what they need to share about why we need to do this work. If we don't know who we are, then we are whoever somebody says we are. And Neely Fuller said, if you do not understand white supremacy, what it is and how it works, everything else that you understand or you think you know will simply confuse you. And Thiongo said, be careful. Our lives are a battlefield on which is fought a continuous war between the forces that are pledged to confirm our humanity and those determined to dismantle it. Those who aim to open our eyes, to make us see the light and look to tomorrow, and those who wish to lull us into closing our eyes. And we're getting an awful lot of lulling, especially when it comes to the lack of truth-telling about our history. History matters. How something is seen, I suppose, depends on whose eyes are looking at it. And there are many stories to be told. Stories have been used to dispossess and malign. They can also be used to empower and to humanize. They can break the dignity of a people, but they can also repair that broken dignity if we're looking at it through our eyes. If you're not careful, though, the newspapers will have you hating the people who are being oppressed and loving the people who are doing the oppressing. And if that wasn't the media I saw covering Baltimore, covering Ferguson, covering New York, I don't know what is. Malcolm warned us. And Miriam Makeba said, the conqueror writes history. They came, they conquered, and they write. Now, you don't expect the people who came to invade us to tell the truth about us. And Dr. Clark said this condition started a long time ago, centuries ago, with the beginning of the slave trade. The Europeans not only colonized most of the world, they began to colonize information about the world and its people. So Gwendolyn Brooks said, be careful what you swallow. Chew before you swallow that information. Narratives that we are exposed to matter. And Garvey knew this. He said, a people without the knowledge of their past history, origin, and culture is like a tree without roots. And a tree without roots is a mind that is wandering. Biko said, the most potent weapon in the hands of the oppressor is the mind of the oppressed. We have to understand that. And we have to understand how Baldwin explained it when he said, the American ideal of progress is measured by how fast I become white. That is a wandering mind, okay? And Carter G. Woodson said, every man has two educations, that which is given to him and the other which he gives himself. We have to give ourselves our own education to feed our minds. But the curriculum matters. Nyerere said, when we were at school, we were taught to sing the songs of the Europeans. How many of us were taught the songs of the Wanyamwezi and the Wahehe? We weren't. Baldwin once again said, all you're ever told in this country about being black is that it is a terrible, terrible thing. Now, in order to survive this, you have to really dig down into yourself and recreate yourself. Really, according to no image which yet exists in America. We have yet to create it. You have to decide who you are and force the world to deal with you, not with its idea of you. But that's a difficult feat because some of our minds, we want to stay in the matrix. And Harriet Tubman realized that. She said, I freed thousands of slaves. I could have freed thousands more, only they knew they were slaves, right? Biko said, merely by describing yourself as black, you have started on the road towards emancipation. You have committed yourself to fight the forces. The value added of the emotional emancipation circles consciousness and emotional emancipation is let's define ourselves. Any movement for the Negro's freedom that overlooks the necessity of psychological freedom is only waiting to be buried. And it's our work to do. When it all comes down to it, it's what we do for us that's going to make the difference. We have got to raise our sons and daughters so they understand the beauty and power of who they are. Because at the end of the day, if you're silent about your pain, they'll kill you and say you enjoyed it. So please, let's emancipate ourselves from mental slavery. None but ourselves can free our mind. Give light, and people will find the way. EECs offer light beyond the pain of the blues to the sky blue of unlimited possibilities, so we can breathe. Thank you.
It's so powerful, Dr. Grills, and we thank you so much for sharing and imparting that knowledge with us. With the kickoff by Enola Aird. So I'm going to ask Enola and Charlene Phipps to join us at the table. And because Dr. Grills, I think when I met with them this morning, because Enola and Dr. Grills actually did a radio interview for us this morning. And she said, I'm going to cut my slides down. And because she did that, we have plenty of time for questions, which is rare for us. If you've been to our forums before, you know we usually get kicked out because we're right at the wire. So I'm going to ask, I guess, Alana or someone from my staff to kind of walk around with this mic, and we're going to sit at the table. And if you have a question, just raise your hand. So I'm going to start by kind of setting the stage in relationship to emotional emancipation circles in Baltimore. So I started out by saying Dr. Nell Prim introduced us to the model of emotional emancipation circles. And I went to my board, Jonathan Shepard, I'm not sure if he's still here or not, in the back there. I went to Dr. Shepard and I said, Dr. Shepard, we need to have the emotional emancipation training in Baltimore. And so Anel helped me connect with Dr. Grills and Enola Aird. And they came to Baltimore really on my very shoestring budget. And I robbed Peter to pay Paul, asked Dr. Shepard to give me some money, and Dr. Prim and some other people to just be able to offer the training almost free of charge. But I'm also and grateful to them because they really did not charge us to come and do that initial training. We gathered enough funds to help pay their travel expenses because Dr. Grills is coming from California. And we were very grateful to do that. And so we had that first training in June of 2015, and we trained 30 facilitators, which was great. And we had hoped to have planted a number of circles in Baltimore a year later. This young lady that I'm going to introduce now, Miss Charlene Phipps, she was really the first, she calls herself servant, the first servant to actually facilitate a EEC in Baltimore. Charlene is a servant leader, as well as an independent community healing advocate working with African American children, youth, seniors, and families. I follow her. We're Facebook friends, and if there is anything that is uplifting for Black people that's happening in a 50-mile radius, Charlene Phipps is there. Do you hear me?
Yes, indeed.
As a matter of fact, you might want to follow her if you want to know what's happening, because Charlene knows what's happening. And even any information that she has, she freely shares it. She'll call me up or send me an email saying, did you know about this? Sometimes I do, sometimes I don't. And she has helped. And I see Sister Margaret Powell in the audience, who was one of the persons that attended the facilitators training. And we at the Black Mental Health Alliance assisted Ms. Powell and Dr. Charles Hicks. They started the second circle in September, and the Black Mental Health Alliance assisted in helping them get space at the Penn North Library. And what we didn't know was that you could only get the space for a certain number of sessions. So after their session, after that number was over, we, as the Black Mental Health Alliance, had kind of used up our times that we could get the space at the library. And Charlene is on the board of another nonprofit, stepped in again and offered her connection with her nonprofit that she's affiliated with to continue the work of Ms. Margaret Powell and Dr. Hicks. So I'm just saying that. I could read her bio, but I'm just saying that so you can see the kind of person that she is and the commitment that she has to this work. She has a circle that is every first Tuesday of the month at the Urban Business Center, which is at 1200 West Baltimore Street. You know, all are welcome to attend. And I'd just like for her to start us off with this panel as you formulate your questions and share with us her experience as being a servant leader and a facilitator of Emotional Emancipation Circle now for almost a year.
Thank you. Hello, everyone. So, as you've heard, I'm quite a busy person, so I like to be in the know what's going on, and to also connect children, family, communities, working with seniors, all together to really bring the good news about us, about Black people and Black families. So I came to Community Healing Network. In 2011, I started finding out information about Community Healing Network, and soon after that, I began to celebrate Community Healing Days in 2012, which is the third weekend of October. So, and I found out the Community Healing Network through the Association of Black Psychologists, and I found them on the internet. So, of course, when we find something on the internet, we have to make sure it's legitimate. So, the late Dr. Maya Angelou was a founding board member. And when I saw Dr. Maya Angelou, I was like, oh, it's okay, then that's good. But the more and more I learned about Community Healing Network, the more I wanted to be involved. So ever since then, 2012, I've been working with communities, going to museums, and working with schools, neighborhood associations, just to really bring emotional emancipation to the community. I officially started facilitating a community, an emotional emancipation circle last year, so it was last April. I can't say that was ever my intention to be a facilitator of the EEC. It just kind of happened, but I really love what I'm doing, and I really love providing that safe space for people for Black people to come in and talk about our emotional emancipation and our healing, and to also practice wellness skills. So.
Thank you. Thank you, Charlene. Would you help me in thanking Charlene for the work that she does in our community? Thank you. So because we started this work, working with the Community Healing Network and Dr. Grills, I had the opportunity to share the EEC model in various arenas throughout Baltimore. And people are very interested in the EEC model. And we have even received some funding to bring you back here and have you talk to us again about this, to train some more facilitators. As a matter of fact, we have an all-day training tomorrow. And I know some of you that are here are going to be attending. And if you want to spend your Saturday with us, you can see me after this event. But just in looking at your website and your portal, which I do very frequently, especially as I prepare to speak about EEC, and I look at some of the frequently asked questions and some of the questions that people ask me. And one of the questions is, why is it only for Black people? And so I'd like, okay, I see Enola already grabbing the mic, so she's ready to answer that.
We sincerely believe that interracial healing is not possible unless there's intraracial healing. Because of the lies of white superiority and Black inferiority, if we just did interracial without intraracial, we come into the room as unequals. And so we believe we have to do our work, and we commend to others that they do their work as well before we actually have the opportunity to sit and work on that deeper, not deeper, but that bridging that gap. And we also believe that as Black people, we deserve to set our own terms for our own healing. It's an act of agency and dignity to say that this is how we will do this. And we appreciate people who appreciate that.
Does anyone in the audience have a question? Lynn, this lady here. Richard, okay, I apologize. Richard, you're next.
Hello, thank you. I do have a question for the panel, and what I wanted to say is that I do a lot of healing work in different areas, and I see that while people are hungry, the fear that comes from the process you were describing, all right, is palpable. It's karmic. So even if the information about people and about African people, I understand, when it comes to challenging the status quo, I'm too afraid to accept it, let alone act on it. So I wanted to know how all of you incorporate healing into having people feel comfortable as they're kind of deconstructing that space that they're in, because I know many people that I can understand the information, but if you're talking about it, it's as if we're on the plantation. I'm literally afraid. I don't want to engage because I'm fearful. Thanks.
So there's a couple of things that we do. The circles actually start with people naming their strengths and defining what we call go-tos when you're in the midst of racial paper cuts or more direct in-your-face racial assaults, so that you have tools that can help to stabilize you and to help to ground you. And so that's kind of one thing. And the second thing is the circles happen in community, and it's amazing the empowerment that happens when you are around other Black folk and realize you're not the only one having that experience, having that concern, having that fear. And there's something empowering about that community that actually allows people to open up. And in any given circle, there's not enough time for everyone to share, but it's not even necessary because I see myself in her story, right? So that becomes another way. And then we actually focus on wellness skills. We focus on mindfulness. We focus on understanding the strength and resiliency that we have to face the fear. So there's different things kind of woven throughout.
There's also a lot of music and a lot of joy, because we do have strengths, and we're always conscious of them. I mean, we have everything, and we're aware that we have everything that we need in order to do this work. But I agree with you that there is always that fear, and we have to work through it. And part of it is just creating a space that is so welcoming that people want to come back. One of the visions that I had when we were doing this, my parents, who are now deceased, their church had a AA meeting downstairs, and I was always so impressed by the sense of determination that the people who came there had. It was as though there was some fresh water down there that they needed to drink. And so the idea was that the EECs would be that kind of compelling, drawing place. We're working on that, but that's the hope.
And what I can add to that from being a community person, because that was really a concern for me, when I facilitate with a psychologist, although it's not EECs are not therapy, and we don't suggest therapy. We, people who need that, we, send them there. But I find that there's always someone in the group who comes. And like Enola said, everything that we need is there. So we hold each other up, and we are just, that person is taken care of. And we take that time when someone wants to share their story to let them work through that. So, and that's what I've seen, and that's what I appreciate about the circle, because it's not only me as the facilitator. There are other people there as well who are all working together. You're welcome.
Dr. Grill, your presentation, you went too fast. So I want you to start over again, and we need you to slow down and do it again, because it's that important. But I participated in the last training last year, and I sat in the group, and I was the young man who said that maybe we need a healing circle for men, because when I saw the underground piece that you did, and then when I saw white cops throw little girls across the room, as a man, I want to strike out and beat somebody up right now. So it was hard for me to watch 12 Years a Slave with white folks around me. And that's one issue. The other issue is infrastructure needs to sustain this. I mean, we tend to think that we can do this without staff, without money, without support and resources. We think we can. This is very important work. It has to be sustained. I don't know, and again, I was trying to, at least without infrastructure, without staffing support, I was going to try to put together a all-men's healing circle. It became very, very difficult to do. If you don't have staff, if you don't have some resources, if you don't have ongoing support, it's hard to maintain and sustain, no matter how critical, no matter how important this work is. And it's very, very important to cleanse ourselves, elevate ourselves, and to move to the next level. So I'm curious as to how other circles are doing around the country, with or without support, and how would you all address that issue, because I still want to hurt somebody, and y'all got to help me, okay? Because I'm, but that's just my issue.
We are painfully aware of the need for infrastructure and staffing and support. And we are intent on bringing to this work the level of support that it needs. We are used to surviving. We're used to being surviving people. And we feel that we must insist on thriving, even as we do the work. And so we don't know exactly how it's going to happen, but we are determined to put together the kind of plan that, as a development person that I'm working with, we had a retreat at Community Healing Network over the weekend, and she says this is at least a multi-million-dollar effort. And we just need to think in that way, because we need and deserve, and we will get the resources that we need to take it to that level.
And I'll just add real quickly that we are trying to experiment with a couple of different models. So in California, we actually are rolling out circles across the state that involve about 20 to 30 community-based organizations. And there's one organization in the state that's acting as the coordinator of all of that efforts. And then we did intensive training regionally in the state. Then The administrators of those organizations meet monthly by webinar with that CIBHS. Then monthly, myself and Dr. Rowe do webinars with the facilitators. And the reason for the meeting with the administrators is to help the agency figure out how to hold the circle. And some of the circles are going to be gender specific. Some of them are going to be for teenagers. Some of them are going to be in mental health settings. Some are going to be in community centers, et cetera. One model that we also looked at, but because the then sitting mayor didn't get reelected, it kind of was that churches were going to serve as the hub in Tuskegee. And 40 churches across the city were going to actually provide the infrastructure so that the facilitators merely had to do their outreach and get their people to their circle meeting. That's still a possibility, and I'm actually speaking with a group of churches next week in LA to see if I can't engage them to test that model out. So we're very concerned, and I'm concerned about taking money. My students and I had a conversation about if we look at every time we've tried to practice agency, we have been undermined or co-opted in some way, shape, or form. So I'm very concerned that the EECs don't somehow get co-opted. And so I invited my students to think of ways that that might happen, and they came up with too many ways. And so we're really, really mindful of that.
History is replete with examples.
I just want to add to that, as the agency or as an agency in Baltimore who has committed to this work and who has also found it challenging to provide support to even the first group of facilitators that we trained, even to the level of helping them identify space. You know, something that seemed like it was easy to do, and we said we could do that. I mean, Sister Margaret could share with you the obstacles we ran into even trying to identify space. Even in the space that she's in now, we're talking about co-opting and having to maybe alter slightly, ever so slightly, your model because they did not want white superiority on the flyer. And so, you know, it is what it is. You know, the model is what it is, and you know, having to make those changes. But I hear you, Richard, and I talked to Cheryl and Enola this morning about the models that they are doing in various other states, and they have agreed to share that information with me in hopes that those are some of the things that we can also do in Maryland.
I'll shut up after this quick, because this is so important. Otherwise, you know, this work will not fall on deaf ears, but it will be challenged by the inability to really sustain it. So again, if the critical mass that you are trying to reach understood, I mean, if we did what you are suggesting we need to do, we would support this. Because it's counterintuitive to go to white folks to ask money to emancipate us. But that's what we'll end up doing. That's counterintuitive. That's crazy. That's insane. So I'm hopeful that maybe what we can try to do is not qualify this, because you all have already qualified it, but how can we quantify it? How can we quantify the benefits, economic benefits of emancipation, of emotional emancipation? And I don't know if you understand what I'm saying, but I'm hopeful that we can do that, because if critical mass, 10% of us simply supported this effort at the level that we need to, we could really fund this. And of course, we want to go to our celebrities all the time. We want to go to sports people all the time to do this, but they need to also go through this, because they're not going to be able to do this without emancipation as well. So I'm just hopeful that, again, that we find a way to really, really deal with this issue of providing the necessary infrastructure and resources to really, really sustain this, because you know, it's difficult to do if we don't have that kind of support. Okay?
I just want to assure you on the point of support. I absolutely believe that we have to take the lead in supporting. And I can assure you that up until now, we've been around for 10 years, that the the majority of the money, and it's not been a lot, but it's come from Black people because that is crucial to us on a spiritual level, actually. And so we intend to continue along that way. And I think the resources are in our community. But you're right, there's educating and there's exhorting that needs to be done.
I just wanted to say thank you so much. This is so necessary, and I'm just glad, to see people. Whereas we don't have to apologize or water down or make excuses for our own worth. Our water and our ice is just as cold, and I'm just glad to see that, and thank you. And I'm wondering if anyone, with all the laws and the emancipation, the changes and the amendments, has anyone heard about the fact that we're still coming up on where every 20 years it needs to be approved for us as Blacks to have the right to vote? Has anyone heard that? Is that fact? With the amendments, it was with Lyndon Johnson, and I think Bush was the last one that signed. There was a right to vote, but it had to be amended and ratified every 20 years. And I don't hear people talking about that. Is that just hearsay? Back to the Voting Rights Act, because all of this is important and it could affect, any progress that we may have made as a group of people. And like you, sir, watching that film was kind of hard for me because I noticed it's the women. Have you noticed that the women, we take the brunt and we almost protect our men? And I've seen it in my history, in my parents' ages, the men who thought it was important to put Black women down so that they themselves could feel strong and in control, when really it was the women who had the strength, and so for us to be belittled by our own Black men, I'm bringing up a lot of stuff and that needs healing and to be talked about so I guess I need to know where the meeting is. I want to say this, I come from a family where my Black family are married to whites, and I'm so fearful that, and I love my great nieces and my brother and my sister-in-law and all of them, but with the integration, will we lose? I'm just saying the people who no longer see the importance of our history and our worth. And not that I love you less, but I'm all that too. We as a group of people are all that too, and we need to know that. So I'm just so grateful for this forum.
There's a question down here.
Did anyone want to respond to? As I was listening to you, my mind flashed to about 10 or 20 circle sessions that I've done in different parts of the country, and even in Cuba and Ghana. And so these issues, the things that you identified run deep. And we need spaces where we can talk this stuff through and unpack it, where we all understand it, and where we, how do I put this? Our men and our women need a space where we can untangle the incredible mess that was put upon us that created an unnatural condition and an unnatural set of relationships, and help each other find our way back to our definition of what it means to be in community across genders. And so while we as women have done a whole lot, our men have done a whole lot. While we have experienced a whole lot, our men have experienced a whole lot. And I think what we need most is empathy and compassion, and a space to express the wounds, where we are going toward the same end, which is how do we re-embrace each other, right? And that's what the circles are about. And I've seen, let me tell you, I've seen some male-female in the circles that started out like and ended with embracing and atonement and understanding in ways that, as a clinical psychologist, made me overjoyed because I'd not seen that in the Western models. And so we have the capacity to do this work.
Good evening, everyone, and good evening to the panel. Thank you for what you're doing tonight and for all that you've done leading up to tonight. The ancestors are pleased, I know. My name is Araka Rotharondu. I am CEO of Ma'at Enterprises. Those of you familiar with Egyptian philosophy understand Ma'at is the Egyptian goddess of truth, righteousness, justice, balance, and harmony, which are our values. I teach a class called The Awakening, which follows our history from 5.5 million years BC, 5.5 million years BC with the advent of the Australopithecines in Central and Eastern Africa. That's how far our history goes. Up until the present day. Many of the images that you blessed us with, experiences. And what I have to say touches on the fear that was expressed here and the rage that was expressed there, because when you understand the journey that you're talking about, everything changes.
Yes.
Everything changes. People have taken my class, couples have divorced, because when you get it, everything, your reality in totality changes. And that rage that was expressed is evoked. People resist the journey that you're talking about because on that grief. Okay, so we watched a clip, right? I don't know about you, I'm gonna be recovering from that all night. What would happen if I immersed myself in that truth? The mind protects itself. So what I'd like to know, well, first of all, right now I stopped doing my work for a number of years because it was so transformative and people got to those places and then didn't have anything to do with that. And I'm not a clinical psychologist. You can't rip the rug out from under somebody and then not give them a new foundation. So I'm hearing that the EECs might be a place, and I want you to talk about the difference between what you do and therapy. The EECs might be a place where I can direct people who now need to find a new internal foundation for who they are. Is my perception of what you do accurate, and can you kind of distill the difference between the two?
Yeah.
Thank you.
So that's an excellent question and summation. I think about the circles as equivalent to initially popular education, information, a new way of framing and understanding things. Add to that, going through that education and that increased awareness in the context of community, which speaks to our relational needs as a people, and to me ignites our resiliency. Our resiliency is tied to our connection to other people. Our well-being is tied to our connection to other people. And when we ignite that, we actually inspire our own self-healing, right? And then within that context, what may emerge is self-correction, observation of others' journey. You share tools for healing and tools for managing your world. So in that context, there are some folks for whom it helps them to reconnect with traumas that are so deep that it then they're ready, first of all, to now look at it. They're ready to hear the community give feedback on this is how you're being experienced in the community. They're recognizing the limitations placed on their life by the traumas and the wounds that they've experienced. And then that's where a referral to some more concentrated work that does the unpacking of that in a safe, measured way where as you're taking certain things out, there are already tools there and other things that are going in to replace it. That's beyond the work of a circle, but the circle can actually help people to get to that point where they can do that without running away. But at the same time, the circles are still necessary even in that context because, again, one of the essential pieces of the circle is our connection to each other. I cannot emphasize that enough. That the wisdom of African psychology is that we understood that I am an extension of you, you're an extension of me, and when you're not doing well, I'm not doing well. And so, and that my true spirituality is, yes, about my connection to my source, but the best way to demonstrate my connection to my source is my connection to you. And so focus on that. And if you do that, your spirituality and your psychological well-being and your physical health are now protected. So that's the kind of thing that we need to focus on, and that's what we focus on in the circle, and we refer for more deeper work.
Gives us opportunity, because we've done it a lot of different ways. We've had big groups, and we kind of stay together, and then Charlene and Adana have broken us up into smaller groups where we can talk about issues. And so I think that the circle does provide the opportunity for you to at least do the beginning work, as you just said, to maybe talk about something that you hadn't even thought about in years. I've heard people say that, I've never told anybody this, or I haven't even thought about this particular scenario in years. And being in this circle and listening to other people share on, again, various levels will bring those experiences to the surface and allow you the opportunity to start having conversation about them, and which will lead hopefully to healing.
Right. Because just because you haven't thought about it or talked about it in years, doesn't mean you're not carrying it in your body for years. And so when you start talking about it, there's an opportunity to let it go and relieve yourself of that.
I'm called to express something that I'm experiencing right now, and I want to express it because it may help someone else here. I want to thank you. The revolution will not be tolerant. We've got to come together in spirit, in body, to do the work that needs to be done. People keep telling me that I need to record the awakening, make it a video, a DVD series. This is soul work.
Yeah.
So if anyone out there is doing something they're called to do, and they're being pressured by society to DVD it, YouTube it, and I'm not saying that there's not a place for that, but there's no way you could achieve what you're achieving as a webinar. So I am embracing that and recommitting to doing soul work with soul.
Yes.
And thank you for that gift. And I wanted to give voice to it in case it feeds anybody else in the audience. Thank you.
Thank you.
Good evening, and thank you yet again. So I'm a member of Charlene's circle as well, along with Jan. And while I get many, many things from the circle, and it's been almost a year journey, it is a journey. And we come understanding that this is not something that's going to happen quickly, although we have triumphs almost at every meeting. But what I really like is that we leave there and we come back to it, and we are asked, how are you going to apply this today or when you leave? And we're asked how did that go when you come back? And what I want you to do is to talk about that, because I love the camera lenses, because it does give you something to take away every time you leave and look at scenarios that you encounter. And I wanted you to talk a little bit about that. Charlene, any of you?
A lot of times in the circle, my co-facilitator likes to call it homework. But as we work through the keys, we will ask, you'll see quotes around the walls. So the quotes is something that we use, and we also work with the 7 emotional keys that we use. And we will have people, the key that we're working on before they leave, and once we do the work, we will say, how are you going to, let's think about how you can use this key this week. And, you know, we don't see each other for a month. So with the weeks to come, how will you apply what you've learned? And it's always good for people to come back and tell us how they were able to apply it. The one key that that I think about that we used, and I'll just say, you know, for myself without being in a general way, thinking about how we, there's a quote that says, the enemy outside of you cannot hurt you if there's no enemy within. So a lot of times with that particular quote, I find myself, the work that I do is just working on how I'm receiving things and what I feel about what I'm experiencing, and not worried about who outside is having an impact on what's happening in me. So I carry that with me as far as my relationship with myself and my relationship with other people. So that's a big one for me. So I hope that
I just want
answers
to
your
add
question.
also that this is why we at the Black Mental Health Alliance want to help to spread the circles that are available in EEC, so that the burden doesn't just fall on Adana and Charlene and Sister Margaret, and that there are opportunities for people to connect to whatever circle that best fits them. And when I say that, I mean there could be, not necessarily, not could be, there is a need for an all-male circle. I mean, I would love to see Richard Rowe and whoever could work with him as a co-facilitator have an all-male circle. There could be circles where they're just youth, you know. There could be circles where they're just women. And so this work is very important, and it can't have the impact that is intended with just 1 or 2 circles in a city that has the need that Baltimore has. And so I'm just saying that to say that when we have the opportunity to have Cheryl and Enola here, like we do tomorrow, and I'm not going to even tell you the level of intensity with regard to just making sure that we have the number of people that we would like to have in that training. It's just a lot of work, and we do need to have people like you who would come out on a Friday night be involved in that work.
I wanted to share something. I think Charlene talked to me about Community Healing Network in June of 2014. And I teach elementary school in Baltimore City. Freddie Gray went to my elementary school before I started teaching there. And we talked about it in June. In October of 2014, we were talking about Community Healing Network to my students, 5th graders. And we've been talking to them ever since. So we meet the second Saturday every month in terms of my students, and there's some aspect of what we do on Super Scholar second Saturday that's related to community healing. They understand that, they write about it, they have discussions about it. I remember Jan said at the last facilitators, the training that we did last year, that you wanted to set up circles in 21217, 21216, and 21215. And when you said 21217, that's where I live, that's where I work. And I said, I'm on it. And I meant that. And so we started in September with our first circles, and we've continued ever since. I don't get this about the money part of it, and it needs to be funded or whatever. Dr. Charles Hicks and I work together on the circle, and whatever it takes, we're going to make it happen because there's a need. And so people come, and so Charlene Circle is the first Tuesday of every month at 1200 West Baltimore Street. 21217 Circle meets the first Saturday of every month at Pratt Library, Pennsylvania North Avenue. That's zip code 21217, and we meet 10:30 to 12:30. So anybody is welcome to come, and I just love Black people, and unapologetically. And this is work that has to be done. And so because I'm a teacher, you know, I'm starting with the children. They see the quotes that we do, so they are just, and what is said in the circle, it stays in the circle. So it is a safe space. So.
Dr. Brown.
Yes, I want to thank Charlene Phipps, Enola Aird, and Dr. Grills for their great work. And I've been fortunate to participate in circles that all of them have led. There's one thing about this model that I love so much, and that is that once the circles become mature, they have the capacity to do things in their community. The agency piece that you talked about, there are opportunities for people to come together, identify some issue in their community that they want to change and make a better quality of life. And I wanted to know if you could share with us some examples of perhaps circles who've gotten to that point and have been able to do things in their community, because I think that would be very inspiring for Baltimore.
Well, I can share an experience, one example that is in progress now. We have an emotional emancipation circle with leaders of community-based agencies in New Haven, because they wanted to figure out how to work more effectively together. They recognized that a lot of issues were, one of the things we're taught to do and conditioned to do is to compete. And part of what we have been working with in that group is similar to what Dr. Grills said. What are the barriers that keep us from being effective? And the EECs have been very, very helpful. Our experience has been very helpful with that. We're now moving into a community project for that group. And the community project is called the ownership culture. One of our members is particularly focused on, he's a businessman, he's always thinking we just gotta own everything, we gotta own everything in our community. And one day we were talking and it became clear that we don't own anything. We don't even own ourselves, we don't even own our minds. And so the goal with this ownership culture initiative is to have a series of conversations in our community about how we are owned and how do we own ourselves. So I'm really excited about it because Toni Morrison says being freed is one thing, but claiming ownership of that freed self is another. And that's what we want now to bring to our community, this question of ownership. And what are the places in which we're not completely in control of ourselves? Our education, we're not, I mean, you can just go down the line. And how do we then fertilize our community with that idea? How do we have conversations about it? And how do we then develop a plan for ownership? And I just have to say, Ken Burns said in connection with Ferguson in 2014, he said, kind of speaking as the typical white person, we don't own you anymore, but we find ways to continue to own you. We find ways to continue to control you, and since you're, I'm not quoting exactly, but since you are devalued, we can kill you with impunity. The laws that have been passed to protect you are routinely ignored, have been routinely ignored, and as we can see now, continue to be routinely ignored. And so he put the question of ownership in a very, very good way. I commend it to you. We'll probably have one white person's quote, and that'll be that one, because it really gets at the heart of the matter. So that's one that I'm really excited about. Thank you, Dr. Prim, and thank you for your support. We're very grateful.
1 second, please. So there are two hands. I'm going to allow you to be the last two questions, because I did say that Dr. Grills and Enola Aird are going to facilitate this training tomorrow that starts at 8:30 a.m. And so we need to release them so they can have the time to have some respite and to prepare for tomorrow. So after these two questions, I'm going to ask our panelists to have a closing thought, and then we're going to conclude. Yes, sir. Ma'am? Yeah.
My question to either one of you, my question to either one of you is, in your work for mental health, who are you seeing need more help? Is it the men, women, or kids?
We all need help.
Right.
But I'm saying in your line of work, who are you seeing needed more help?
We proceed from the proposition that we all need help. Men, women, children, rich people, poor people, presidents, members of Congress, people who are walking the street, whether you went to Harvard or Yale. And I guess I'll make my closing comment now. We were in the train station in DC, and the architect of that train station, Daniel Burnham, said, "Make no small plans, they have no magic to stir men's souls." In this effort, we have not made any small plans. This is a global movement. Wherever we are, with this color, we suffer the same challenges, the same indignities, the same mistreatment. And so in this, the International Decade for People of African Descent, as designated by the United Nations, which hardly anyone knows about, because it is, for me, an indication of the low regard in which we're held. We have purposed not to just do the work here. Thanks to Dr. Grills, who will go anywhere insistently every time. I mean, she's just amazing. Amazing. So we got Cuba, we got the United Kingdom, Birmingham, we've got Ghana. We're going to have the Caribbean. We're hoping to do trainings there in November. So this is a global movement, and it's not just a global movement for us to kind of endlessly deal with this problem. There's a sense in which Black people, whenever there's a holiday, there's this kind of statement that says, "We've come a long way, but we got a long way to go." As though we are just destined to suffer. We're just destined to survive. I have 2 children whose name I do this work. I do not want my grandchildren to be in this space. And so we're not just interested in clearing our minds. We very much want to clear our minds of this toxicity. But we also want to clear the world of this. 400 years in the United States and 500 years outside is more than enough of dehumanization, of second-classness, of devaluing. It's more than enough. So we set this ambitious goal because we believe with Zora Neale Hurston that, as she said, Mama exhorted us to jump at the sun. We might not get there, but at least we would get off the ground. And so we set 2019 as the date by which we wish to organize a critical mass and engage a critical mass of Black people in the world in this effort. It doesn't give us an awful lot of time. And that is why last year we launched the first annual Valuing Black Lives Global Emotional Emancipation Summit to bring together people from across the diaspora to say, enough. We've lived under this narrative for 400, 500 years that assumes, that is driven by the notion that we're inferior. We want to write our own narrative, a narrative that is based on our humanity and dignity as people of African ancestry. So 2019 is our goal. We might not get there, but we will get off the ground.
I just want to answer a part of your question really quickly. So at the Black Mental Health Alliance, part of what we do is resource and referral to clinicians. And so our members, which I hope many of you who are clinicians and even students or just you care about the kind of work that we do will become members, we refer people to clinicians. And people call our office. That's a service we provide free of charge. And we find that very few men call our office to receive referrals, not zero, but not as many as the women. And so we have a larger number of women calling for referrals and women calling for male children, right? That's what we see at the Black Mental Health Alliance.
And the only reason I asked, because 15 years ago, when St. Elizabeth Hospital was still operating, if you were sick and someone referred you to St. Elizabeth, you were taken care of. But now the mentally ill people just walk the street. So that's the reason I asked you that, you know.
They're in jail.
Right, right. Yes, sir.
So I just wanted to say to the question earlier, is Section 5 of the Voting Rights Act that was originally set as a temporary provision for the federal system to basically oversee the Deep South states in the way that they set up voting elections. And so since it was an emergency provision that requires reauthorization ever so often. And so that is what Section 5 is what's usually under debate, but then also under the Supreme Court. I think Shelby versus Holder, I'm sure the lawyer can but section but the Roberts Court has been attacking the Voting Rights Act, and I believe the Civil Rights Acts of '64 as well. So some of these things are under attack by the Supreme Court. Others, depends on like the judicial review of these voting rights, the voting plan. But I do want to say, I actually was one of the men that I did call the Black Mental Health Alliance to connect to my therapist, and it's been very helpful. The clip actually, I know you called it rage, but the other thing is, if you saw that black man sort of standing there, like what it is, it's also like feeling helpless to help. Because I would watch the videos of like the Jerry Beckton, which you showed in your slide, and there was an incident in Fairfield, Ohio this past summer as well, and seeing black children, even on a video, even on a computer, and not being able to do something to help them, like that actually caused like tightness in my chest, which actually led to, because I was thinking maybe I need to see a cardiologist, and my PCP was like, no, you need to see a psychologist. Wow. But it was like this helplessness to help. I had to stop watching like the videos because I'd never seen the Sandra Bland video, never saw the Sam Du Bois video in Cincinnati. I knew I couldn't watch it. But then one day I saw this white officer standing over a black girl. The video was like 15 seconds long. I was like, how bad can this be? And it was the officer flipping over the girl in South Carolina. And it's like I could feel my heart just like tighten again. And so come to find out, it's like anxiety, panic attack, but it's around not just the rage, which is also, there's also the paternal instinct, like to want to, because there was a black male teacher, I believe, that was in that room.
Yes.
And he reminded me of the guy in that clip. He was, not only did he stand there, but he backed up. Now that's when I went into rage, because like go do something to stand between that girl and the police officer. So that's where the rage came in. Like I needed to be there to do something. But then like that incapacitation, he's standing there and he looks and he doesn't do anything. Like so I guess it's rage, but it's also seeing black children in those type of scenarios, it breaks my heart.
I have to defer to my board president. I can't cut him off. But there was a young man he's right here. He's looking at me, and because it is so important for us to have young people involved in what we do, I'm not going to close without you getting the opportunity to ask your question too. So right after Dr. Shepard, and then this young man will be the last question.
I just want to give a name to what that brother just described. It's called race-based trauma. Yes. And you're going to continue to hear more about this. I have the privilege of presenting prayerfully at the American Academy of Child and Adolescent Psychiatry regarding this. You're going to hear different people, Dr. Carl Bell, talk about this, microaggressions. And so what some people don't believe is that PTSD can occur or cannot occur through social media. If you look at DSM-5, which just came out, it says that it's not possible to have that through media. We are challenging that. And my brother, thank you, because you're going to be one of my prime examples. I won't mention your name, but you're going to be one of the examples that helps challenge that particular diagnosis and saying that qualification cannot occur. What that brother just described is a symptom of post-traumatic stress disorder. All right, it may not be in its full context. I know I have clinicians in here, but I'm telling you that this phenomena is real, and you'll call it by different names, and so we want you to know that we are working on that, and you're going to hear more about that.
Young man, tell us your name.
Yes, Kezel.
Say it again.
Kezel.
Kazel.
Kezel.
Kazev.
That's cool.
That's cool. That's close. That's close enough.
Don't worry about it. I just want to say I'm glad to be here. Like this is Prince George's Community College. We up in here. We was invited by my teacher. This is my first time coming to an event that spoke directly to directly to me and the struggle that I feel like my generation itself is going through and has went through, and even whenever we was little. And we just used to seeing our parents and our grandmothers being quiet about things, but at the same time silently crying about the oppression and just the weight that they have to pull on their own. And it seems that from that, like me personally and my brother, my sister, and other people that I see in the streets, we all are struggling. Like it's passed down. It seems like that weight is just passed right down to us, and we don't realize that it's not normal. We don't realize that, you know what I'm saying, we're being conditioned to be mules that pull this weight that we don't have to pull.
Oh, Lord.
Like,
Lord.
we feel like we have these chains that have to be broken, and we're picking with the lock because we don't know how. We don't know even how it got there, like from birth, you know what I'm saying? So we don't really know exactly what it means to be free or what it means to live a life that, you know, people are helping you and things like that. And I want to say that Prince George's Community College is really a good college, because I've met nothing but black people who are willing to open the door and show us how to, you know what I'm saying, get rid of that weight and pull it with us. You know, like they got in the Bible where, you know, Jesus had somebody to pull the cross with him. And I just feel like it's different whenever a white person is trying to tell me about how I should be okay, and, you know, how I'm supposed to live my life and how it should be and things like that, and it feels like it's just so far away. Like they not bleeding with me. They not having to go home to brokenness and have to block that brokenness out in order to just try to personally think about more positive things to feed your spirit and your soul, you know what I'm saying? Because you go out there in the street and then you're surrounded by more brokenness. Everything is so broken. And, you know, I feel like psychology, this is what we are for, because it's a psychology, like it's a psychological breakdown that we're going through in our minds, and all we know how to do is try to get pieces to fix something. that's all we know how to do is try to fix things because things are so broken, just to make it through. And like she said, survive. And I was just wondering, like, being in this type of setting, like, it seems like everybody is struggling. Like, will we ever just be able to live and to breathe? Like,
Yes, we will.
if so, like, how do we get to that point as like young people? Because right now, all I'm seeing is a bunch of young, ignorant, angry people, and they don't know who the enemy is. They just know that they all fighting. So, like, places like this seem like a place of healing, but like where I'm at over in Maryland, and even in Georgia, back where I'm from, it's no places like this. Like he said, it's uncommon. This is a very uncommon event with and then it's a lot of people in here. Like, people actually do care about this. Like, it's not alone. So, like, I was just wondering, like if we are gonna make it and go through it together and be something, what does that look like? On top of that, how are we gonna, like, these circles, how do we find them? Like, they're not on, like, they don't put these on commercials or anything. Just wondering.
Okay. Thank you, young brother. Appreciate you. And you either want to comment?
Well, I want to say, I don't have a direct answer to your question. I have a spiritual answer. Yes, we're going to make it. That's number one. And number two, I think that the way that we're going to make it is by a movement, right? Where at some point, the match is going to be lit, and everybody is going to be on the same wavelength, that we want to write our own narrative. We will no longer live like this anymore. I believe that. And so I don't know when it's going to happen, but I think it's going to be soon, because we're going to be instruments. As small as it may seem, we will be instruments for lighting that match, young man. And I thank you so much for the clarity, the brilliance with which you've expressed the pain. So thank you.
Cheryl, did you have a closing comment?
I think enough has been
Okay,
said.
all right, okay, all right. So, thank you all for coming out this evening. Please help me thank the panel again.